All right, we're back with some Triple Triad. This is going to be pretty advanced, I think, so feel free to pause a lot and analyze positions. We're going to be basing this on a Homer hand from Occult Fan. You can see the beautiful Homer Simpson on the right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about this hand is intended to start with a corner starter. That top card, 3, 6, 7, 4, is going to go in 1. And I'm going to go over different opposing hands and different ways of handling our initial starter, and both look from the perspective of how to play this hand, how to play it really well, understanding the ins and outs of it, but also understanding reasons for the different types of responses to a corner starter. And so I don't really have a single theme to this all, but I think it's going to explore some interesting positions, and I think it's going to be pretty high level stuff. I did try to record this video already, and it went on way too long, so I'm going to cut it shorter and do it in segments, and I hope that'll come out better. So this first one won't be the most complicated, but I think it will be interesting, and I think I've been talking to Turds a bunch recently, and he has all these spots enclosed where he has these thoughts of, here's a symmetrical looking position, but actually two moves that are in symmetrical looking squares that look like they should be the same, he thinks have different values, and I think he's right. And I was thinking about open play and positions where I've thought that. And this was one that came to mind as a position where it looks like two moves should be about equal. But if you look at how we got here and what cards are in hands, they're not in fact equal. So I hope that will prove interesting, even though the play here from our second turn player at least mostly won't be very good. So the game plan of this hand is to start 3, 6, 7, 4, and 1. Then if it is captured from either direction, we can plus wall it easily from 2 or 4. And those cards that we use to plus wall it from 2 or 4, we can easily plus wall them from 3 or 7. So this hand is very well designed to take back our starter and then to take back the stuff we took it with. So I think another neat thing about this hand is after we've played our starter in 1, if you look at the rest of the hand, because we have these two basically opposite corners, and then we have a horizontal and a vertical card, our hand is very directionally balanced after our first move. Until we've played our first move, it is a bit more directed down right than up left. But once we've played the move, the hand is basically exactly balanced, which is a neat feature, because I think a lot of times, in fact, if we look at the hand we're going to be facing here, this is a typical 4-corner hand we're facing. They have a power card for each of the 4 corners, and then they have one utility card at the end. They chose the same horizontal that red has. But what you'll notice is if they play any of their corners, suddenly they are no longer directionally balanced. Well, the red hand, which I would call a 3-corner hand, it has 3 power corners and then 2 utility cards, is in fact balanced after it plays its first card. And I think this is an interesting thing to think about in hand construction of if you're starting in a corner or something that's not central, not just does your hand start balanced in every direction, but how balanced in various directions is it after you play your starter. So this first video, we're going to look at what happens when blue captures our starter, and then we're going to actually explore that for a few videos. And it should be said, red is very well placed to respond to capturing our starter. Obviously, our whole hand is built around recapturing it. And I still think blue will often have some fairly straightforward paths to ties, if they really know what they're doing, by capturing our starter immediately. Which is to say, I think this is an underrated type of move. I think because noobs are so likely to play it, and because they play it so poorly, people have a really low opinion of capturing someone's corner starter immediately, and that it has more viability than you think. And I hope by the end of, maybe not this video, but the next video or the one after that, you'll be kind of sold that there's some value to just capturing a corner starter, even when they can recapture easily. So I also want to say that Delial hates the 4-corner starter, the 4-corner type of hand that the opponent is using. And, there are lots of people who think people should be more creative than to play such hands. But they are very common, especially on levels like 4, where there's not a ton of choices in what to do. Oh, I should say what the rule set is, but I think that will come up. Yes, I did in fact include it in the next screenshot. Go me. So here, blue has taken our starter. And I guess I want to talk a little about choosing between 3 and 4 here. I think going in 4 and securing 1 forever is right probably around 90 to 95% of the time. And that going in 3 is right, 5 to 10% of the time. But I think in actual play, people played in 3 more like 20 to 30% of the time. And that was a huge mistake. People were giving up a lot of value by not just securing the card they're ready to secure. But I do want to talk a little, and we'll come back to this later, about when and why you might go in 3 instead of 4. So the first requirement is you really want your play in 3 to be safe. If they can take it, it starts looking really hopeless. And here with their 6327, they can plus wall our most natural card for 3, Tiamat 3276. So already it should be a move we're not remotely interested in. But it doesn't just need that. To be better than a move in 4, which is so much going for it, because we're the first one to get to set up what happens in 5, and we also get to secure a card forever. So to go in 3, I think another thing we need is the opponent's hand has to be really bad going up. Has to be a hand where we look at it and think, we just want to force them to go up every turn, give them nothing to bite on side to side. And I think if that's the case, 3 starts looking kind of appealing. And the final reason to go in 3 is if we go in 3, they're going to go in 4, and they're going to secure 1 forever. And we want to make sure they can't set up a good move in 5. And here they're probably going to be able to, because it's very easy for them to take 2. So here I think going in 3 would be a really poor move that would let blue off very easy. But it is occasionally the right move, and I will go on to show examples where I think it is correct in later videos. But by default, red should always be thinking, you captured my starter, I'm going to secure it. Here, I'm not going to cover 6, 8, and 9 as blue's options here. They're complicated, less intuitive, and less likely to be correct. So I think the most commonly played moves are 3, 5, and 7. And in this video, we're going to go over 5, which I think is basically just a very poor move. The problem with 5 is it gives us so many options, right? We can play in 3 and we secure 2 and may have a safe card in 3. It only has 1 outfacing number. We could play in 7 and secure 4 and have a high outfacing number that they maybe can't take either. We could play in 9 and set up a Q. And fundamentally, they're up 6 to 4 after they go in 5, presuming that they, take the card in 4. But we have the only secured card. We have access to everything. We have final turn in a position where final turn is going to have access to a lot of cards. 5 is just, I think, a really poor move, and we're going to look through examples, but it should be noted any card blue plays in 5 is losing here. 5 is just fundamentally a bad move in these structures. Blue will be very lucky to survive. And so we're going to go through a few moves in 5 and think about where we should play. So let's start with Tiamat in 5. And my question for you, and I think you should pause and think about this, and you don't need to solve the whole position. I'm not looking for calculations, but intuitively, do you think red's best chance to win is in 3, 7, or 9? Because I think there's an answer. I think some people would say 3 and 7 are about the same, and that 9 is either better than both or worse than both. But I actually think 3 and 7 are not the same here. And the reason is because our hand is no longer balanced, right? We have these 2 opposite corners, those are balanced, but to recapture our starter, red had to use their vertical card, and they held on to their horizontal card. And that means we want to play now to set up our horizontal card to be better. And where is our horizontal card best? Is it best if we fill up the things in the left where it has a 6 facing? Or if we fill up things on the top right and it can go on the bottom row? And the answer is it's much better on the bottom row. It's 6, 3, 6 at the bottom, means it's going to be plus walling things, it's going to be plussing things. It's going to be very powerful when having its 3 facing the wall. And it's not a very powerful card when its 6 faces the wall. So we really want it to see play on the bottom row. And that means we want to make sure there's squares for it to play on at the end and squares for it to attack on the bottom row. And that means intuitively, it is much better to play in 3 than it is to play in 7. And I think with this kind of hand, both are more likely to win than moves in 9. But I think we should have a clear priority ranking, like a heuristic of check this move first, then this move, then this move. And the first move we look at, if we have under lizard left, not cactuar, is we should look at 3 first, then we should look at 7, and then if we haven't found anything, we should maybe look at 9, though we'll actually get back to that. Now, I'm going to show the weaker move first. I'm going to show 7, because 7 looks very appealing. So if we look at the move in 7 here, right? 1 is ours forever. The card in 4 is ours probably forever, though I guess a combo could get it. The card in 7, basically ours forever. They can't take that. So we have 3 cards locked up, and both their cards on the board are takeable. So it's 5-5, but everything we have is safe. Everything they have is in danger. This looks like a really phenomenal position where blue is very lucky to, if they have any ties. But they do have a tie. And the reason they have a tie is because we have unbalanced our hand and we haven't given 2-6-3-6 time to shine. And we've given up all our upward power, and they can in fact tie with 7-6-3-2 and 3, which we cannot take. If we play either of our cards in 6, we go up 6-4, but 6-3-2-7 will either combo or take us back, and we won't be able to take or combo back enough at the end to win. So in fact, blue escapes from this with a tie, despite the fact that red's position looks amazing. Now, if we look at the move in 3, the natural move in 3, 3-2-7-6, this they can take. The other one was safe. And yet because 2-6-3-6 is so much better on the bottom row than it is on the right-hand side, this is actually a forced win when the other one's a tie. So here, they can play safely. They can play analogously to last game. Last time we played in 7, and they went safely in 3. This time we go in 3, and they can go safely in 7. So they can play 7-6-3-2 and 7. And I guess pause for a second and try to find the win for red. So the win after 7-6-3-2 and 7 is going to be 6-7-2-3 and 6, when Underlizard will dominate the bottom row. But actually 6-7-2-3 and 9 also works if you want to be really fancy. But I think more important is the move in 6, because it shows how good Underlizard is on the bottom row. It's going to take any 7, it's going to take any lower numbers, now that their 6 is out of their hand. It is very powerful if we set it up right. And by playing in 3, we set it up to be strong, while by playing in 7, we'd set it up to be quite weak. Now, blue can also go in 6 here. And if they play in 6, they can take our card in 3 and take a 6-4 lead. But against either of their captures there, they have Behemoth or the stupid card from FF12, 6-3-2-7, or FF14, I don't know. We can play 6-7-2-3 and 7. We capture 4, we tie it up 5-5, they can't take us, and again, Underlizard will dominate at the end. So I think this is quite interesting because 7 was safe and 3 isn't, but 3 is still the fundamentally better move because it sets up our later cards better. And if 3 was safe, 3 would just be much better than 7. But even when it isn't, 3 was a somewhat better move here than 7. And of course, these are specific cards, but I think this is a common theme. Here we have more side-to-side power than up-down, and we should set the game up accordingly. If we had more up-down power, then we should prefer a move in 7 to a move in 3. And I think this is really important for being able to find winning moves quickly, is to think about the directionality of it, because 3 and 7 look very similar, but 3 ends up being a clearly better move. So let's look at, they have other plays in 5, and I guess you can pause and think, what would you play against this move in 5? This time they played 6-3-2-7 there. So I hope this is obvious. For the same reasons as last time, we are better horizontally than we were vertically, so our 2-6-3-6 wants to live on the bottom row, which means we want to play high up to leave those squares open. 3-2-7-6 and 3 is again just completely winning. This time they cannot take it, so it's even better than it was last time. It is absolutely crushing. Now 2-7-6-3 and 5 is the most interesting of the moves in 5, because it's the hardest for us to take. And while we have some combo potential, they may be able to combo stuff back. We'll get to that. But because it's the hardest for us to take directly, it is the easiest. Blue has an easier time trying to hold on to the cards they have. And I think in general, if you're going to be in a bad structure like this is terrible for blue, you want to at least make it hard for red to take things. And so if blue is going to go in 5, I think this is the most hopeful one. Now, again, pause and think about what you'd like to do. So again, the really tempting move is Tiamat in 3, right? And Tiamat 3 is not safe this time, but it didn't need to be safe last time. Sorry, there was noise outside. Okay. So Tiamat in 3 is again the very tempting move. And again, if they take it, we punish easily. We have Underlizard left at the end. It's very strong. But their best move is to play Behemoth 7, 6, 3, 2, and 7, which is again safe, just like it was last time. But this time it's not so easy for us to grab the card in 5. So if we go Tiamat in 3 and they go Behemoth in 7, we actually don't have a win. And you should check that, but our cards don't quite work well enough together at the end, and we don't have a win. So if 3 doesn't work, where do you look next? The obvious answer is 7. Now, I'm not going to go through the moves here, but 7 doesn't win either. So you've looked at our strong corner in 3, and you've looked at our strong corner in 7. And the question is, do you look for a Q next? What do we look for next? And I think the answer is we don't jump to the Q yet. Because our 3-2-7-6 and our 2-6-3-6 are somewhat redundant cards, right? They both have the potential to combo in 3. And we can play either one in 3 and see what happens, and the resulting numbers will work out a little differently. And it turns out that the real key is we needed a little more up-down strength. Underlizard didn't have quite enough in the previous line. So the previous line, if we go Tiamat in 3, we flip everything. That's 3 cards, so we lead 7-3. They go Behemoth in 7. They take 1 card back. We lead 6-4. And the problem is, if we say go 6-7-2-3, Balor in 8, then they have the capture in 6. They can flip our card in 3, and they tie it up 5-5. And Underlizard, with its 2 facing up, doesn't have quite enough power to take it because they have a 2 facing down from their 6-3-2-7. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words a bit here. And blue is going to manage a tie. But if we start with Underlizard in 3, we keep a slightly more powerful card up and down. We keep the 3-2-7-6. And if you follow out the same line, if we play Underlizard in 3 here, and they go Behemoth in 7, and now we go Balor 6-7-2-3 and 8, our 3-2-7-6 is just enough power up down to pull out the win. Now, of course, if we go in 3 with 2-6-3-6, they can take it, but we have pretty easy wins there too, because any card they play in 6 taking us, we can actually meet with 3-2-7-6 and 9, and Balor is going to be a really dominant card in 7 and 8 at the end, and that is a win for red. So I think the kind of understanding should be in these structures is blue wants to make it as hard for us to take stuff as possible. So the toughest move to beat in 5 is going to be 2-7-6-3. And what red wants to do is our first idea should be we should play in the corner that leaves the best squares open for our utility card, which in this case is horizontal. So we want to leave the bottom row open, so 3 is better than 7. If we can't get that card to work in 3, we should then look at our other strong corner in 7. But then after that, before we start looking at 9, we should try the utility card in either of the corners if it can fit there. And I think that will, on average, lead you to look for the highest win percentage move, then the next highest, then the next highest, then the next highest. And you will have the best chance to find the win looking at moves in that order. I should say there are other winning moves here for red. I do believe 2-6-3-6 and 9 is a winning move. There are other wins here. But I think this is the clearest path to finding the wins efficiently in the most positions of this type. So after the 1-4-2 or 1-2-4 sequence, meaning those squares played in that order, 5 is generally a very poor move from blue. It gives us lots of options. We've seen there are lots of threats. Even the non-winning moves in 7, they really had to be very precise to hold ties. And any of these moves are going to get high win rates. Just some moves are forced wins, and some moves they could sneak out with a tie. Our option most likely to win is to go for the strong corner at 3 or 7, but we should be aware of which or 3 of 7 we're going for. If we have Underlizard left, we want to play 3. And if we have Cactuar left, we'd want to play 7 first to leave our powerful horizontal or vertical card ready to dominate the squares it does so well in when it can touch the wall. The second best option is going to be the other strong corner. The third best option is going to be that utility card in one of the corners, whichever one it fits in. And the fourth best option is going to be to go for the Q. Now, we were playing with a very specific hand here, so other hands may have different priority orders here, but I really think this does generally hold up, that the Q is a little less likely to win than any of the three more immediate corner plays. So anyways, that's this first video. The next video we'll look at moves other than 5. 5 is not a very good move, as we've seen, and we will be looking at better options. But I do think it's interesting that 3 and 7 are not equal value, and I hope that was a new idea or a new concept or a new way to think about a position they've probably seen many, many times. So we'll go more in depth in some harder positions next time, but I hope you enjoyed this look at what to do when capturing happens.